Listen, I don't know about y'all, but I really feel like Atlanta is getting back to what it used to be, okay? I would say this Dallas trip is giving us comedy gold with the confessionals, with Phaedra and Porsha. Like, some of that just had me cracking up, okay? And not to mention the shade fest that has been going on among the ladies. So let's just dive right in, okay? I would say during this last episode, hands down, Cynthia was the MVP of this episode because she didn't give down one damn this whole episode, okay? Cynthia gathered the ladies and let them know who's the boss, okay? And of course, you know, Cynthia was in her feelings too about the way things went down. So they divided the group up this particular episode. Some ladies went to go horseback riding, which was Porsha, Phaedra, Angela, and Kay. And then Cynthia took the rest of the girls, which would be Kelly, Shamia, Drew, and Pinky. So here's the thing, though. I don't think this was all about separating so everybody could bond like Cynthia was saying. I think Cynthia wanted to get them ladies together because she had beef with most of them. And she just brought Drew for backup. So she had to get some things straight. So that's why they had to have some separate time, okay? So first off, you know, everybody's still kind of recovering from the fight between Pinky and Angela. And can I just say, that fight needs to go down in the Housewives Hall of Fame. It's one of the best fights, okay? They went blow to blow. That argument went from heaven to hell like real quick, honey. Baby, they were serving. And I have to give them a lot of credit. They went blow to blow, was able to hash out the argument in 5 minutes, and woke up the next morning like nothing was going on, ready for the next day. So I have to give them a lot of credit. There have been a lot of people that have still been salty about that, okay? So when they get on the van, Cynthia wanted to hash things out between Kelly and Shamia because she felt like them talking about the room so much was just kind of taking over the trip and disrupting the trip. And at one point, she's like, you know, are y'all trying to sabotage my trip? Like, what's up with y'all? And then he was like, well, you know, I don't know why you feel that way. It's just because y'all keep talking about it. That's all y'all want to keep talking about it. And if we're being fair, I feel like Kelly and Shamia were being really ridiculous about the whole room thing. First of all, you got Kelly talking about how it's not up to her standards. It's just like, girl, first of all, it was a nice property. Very nice property as a whole. So I didn't think there was anything wrong with the property, okay? And my thing is, when you go on vacation, you're not trying to be in the room the whole time. You're going to be out and about. So it doesn't really even matter that much. But what really got me with Kelly was when she had the nerve in the last episode to say that Frick and Frack, which of course we know is Porsha and Phaedra, should have been the one in the pool house. So let me get this straight. You thought that the two Atlanta veteran OG housewives that helped put Atlanta franchise on the map so you can have a job, okay, should be in the pool house? I don't think so. There's no universe where those two women deserve to be in the pool house, okay? And if we're going to be really fair, between Shamia and Kelly, Shamia actually should have been in the main house with the rest of the ladies. Shamia has a longer history with the housewives, which is why she should have been in the main house. So the way I see it, Shamia took a L just for being Kelly's friend. Because I really feel like Cynthia didn't want to separate them from a couple of reasons. She knew that Shamia had problems with Porsha, and then also her and Drew hadn't been getting along. So it seemed like Kelly and Shamia were really getting along well, so she put them together. So the way I see it, Shamia took an L for Kelly. Okay, so anyway, so that's a whole other thing. But anyway, you know, Cynthia was trying to say, you know, y'all just keep talking about it. And, you know, of course, Shamia was somewhat backing down. And then you got Kelly talking about, you know, not only is the room dirty, and then talking about the accommodations. And it's just like, girl, first of all, I feel like it was exaggerating. Yes, there were some stains on the bed. Like, nobody wants to live with that, okay? And they were talking about, well, you said it was going to get cleaned, and, you know, it still hasn't been cleaned yet. So here's my problem with that, though. They waited, if you go back to the last episode, prior to that, they waited until 20 minutes before dinner to tell Cynthia that the room wasn't up to par. I just felt like they made a decision at that point. They just wanted it to be a problem. So, in fairness, you really didn't even give Cynthia enough time to really rectify the problem because they got to realize it's not like they were staying in a regular hotel. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like when you stay in a hotel, housekeeping could come right away. It's a little bit different when you're in an Airbnb, and their Airbnb seem to be much further out somewhere. So obviously, it's going to take a little bit more time to bring someone out to the property to service them. And then my other thing too, if they really wanted to come to dinner the night before, they could have went to the main house and asked the ladies like, hey, is it possible for us to use one of y'all's bathrooms so we can get dressed to go to dinner? I feel like they didn't do that because they didn't want to. They just wanted to have something to complain about. You're really tripping. And then you had Drew trying to intervene. I could tell she didn't really like the way they were coming at Cynthia. She wanted to kind of back Cynthia up a little bit. And Drew was just like, look, you know, it's all good. Like, we don't have to keep fighting about this. She was like, you know, you look beautiful. And then here comes Kelly. Well, you look like the alien you played in your movie. Girl, I'm sorry, but there's no universe where you could ever be Drew's face card. Not at all. Like, Kelly is not the bomb that she thinks she is. She's too for her to even say that to Drew. And frankly, it just felt so unnecessary. The one thing I don't really like about Kelly is that she feels the need to just come at people for no reason. It's just like, girl, this is not necessarily what Housewives is about. But anyway, so Cynthia pretty much shut them down. Baby, after all that, Cynthia told them, y'all are not hostages. If y'all don't like it, y'all can get the heck on. Go back home, boo. She was not having it. I mean, she did not care. It was just like, look, we ain't talking about this no more, and that's just what it is. And then she asked for a shot after that. I was like, yes. And then as the conversation was progressing, they was like, oh, but what can you tell us about the gala? And she was just like, child, I don't even have the bandwidth at this time. Baby, Cynthia was so over them, okay? She was so over that group to the point where I don't even think she cared too much about getting to their event on time, okay? So they thought they were going to actually do something with the cattle, but it didn't turn out that way. It was just a parade of cattle. And they got to the parade when it was practically over, okay? So a part of me is like, okay, was this intentional for them to be late? Like, did she just really want to mess up this whole activity because she was over all of them? Or maybe it just worked out that way. I don't know. But needless to say, they missed their activity. And they just took pictures with a bull after the fact. Whatever. So if that wasn't bad enough, they then went to go eat. Of course, they're in Texas. So most people want what? They want beef when they get to Texas. Baby, Cynthia took them to this restaurant where they primarily had beef. And we know Pinky's with them. And Pinky is a vegan. Guys, tell me why when they got in there, looking at the menu, Pinky realized, okay, so you really just you know a vegan, right? Like, you know this. And here comes Cynthia with the OG shade. Well, being a vegan ain't for the weak, child. I feel like Cynthia was getting her back a little bit because Pinky had already ruined her dinner the night before. And mind you, Cynthia had gone all out of her way to make accommodations for Pinky the previous night about her vegan diet. But baby, that day, Cynthia didn't give not one damn. She didn't care what that child ate, okay? And my thing with Pinky, though, it's just like, she ordered French fries on the menu. I guess to try to make people feel sorry for her. But then I'm like, you mean to tell me they didn't have a salad or something that was on the menu that you could have ordered? Was French fries really the only thing that you ordered? Because I can't imagine they didn't have like a salad or something, but whatever. But anyway, Cynthia decides to address the night before with her. And she was just like, hey, so what even happened between you and Angela? And, you know, I'm starting to have a little problem with Pinky, right? Because at first, when she came on the show, I liked her. I was just like, okay, I like the fact that she's being vulnerable about what she's going through, her bankruptcy. We're starting to see some about her life with her husband. So at first, I was kind of feeling Pinky on the show. But then, I don't know, I feel like this trip has shown like a different side of Pinky. Because, like, you know, when Cynthia is asking Pinky about what happened between her and Angela, and she was like, well, she asked me, was I bothered? And Cynthia was like, you definitely were bothered. The way you act, you definitely was bothered. And then she was like, I don't even know I was arguing with her because she beneath my tax bracket. You know, I thought it was interesting for Pinky to sit there and talk about how she shouldn't have argued with Angela because she's below her tax bracket. But meanwhile, she seemed to have totally forgotten that, like, her and Angela had a whole bonding moment about bankruptcy and whatnot on the way over here. They're just like, girl, really? That's how you really feel? And I didn't like that. See, it was like some of us felt a little uncomfortable the way you was coming at us or whatever. And she says it's just all about, you know, your tone and your delivery. And then Cynthia's trying to explain herself to her, and Pinky's pretty much trying to run the whole conversation. She pretty much was trying to start the whole conversation, say what she had to say, and then want to shut it down. And then Cynthia was like, hold up. We're not doing that. She said, what you're not going to do is come in here, start it, run the conversation, then end it. You're going to open up the floor for questions. You're not about to do that. And then that's when Drew called Pinky aggressive. Because at that moment, she was being very aggressive. And then in the confessionals, Pinky's all like, well, I don't appreciate them disrespecting me, calling me aggressive, especially, you know, with the way they use that term with black women. Now, let's be clear. We can't be selective about the word aggressive, okay? Sometimes we just got to own our behavior. And in that moment, she was being very aggressive because Cynthia was trying to tell her how she felt. And she was just being very aggressive. And Cynthia was like, look, you were very curt when you was talking to me. And Cynthia was also trying to tell her, you was sitting there making comments when you didn't even have the full picture. And then Pinky was like, well, I did talk to them. She said, but what you was missing a piece of the puzzle because I had talked to them also. And they didn't have the energy that you had. Here's my thing. When we go back to that dinner that they had and when Pinky was addressing it, in that moment, I don't necessarily think that she was being aggressive with Cynthia when she was trying to relay the feelings of Kelly and Shamia. But I do feel like she kept like harping on it. And she was also being accusatory with Cynthia, right? Because she was almost making it seem like Cynthia intentionally put them in this room with some bad intentions. Like she's trying to be shady about that. So I think that's the thing that Cynthia didn't really like or whatever. But baby, Cynthia went ahead and shut that down and told her, look, you got to come better with the delivery because you can't just be talking crazy to people. And here's my problem that I'm having with Pinky. Like she's talking about, I'm strong, I'm a bad bee, I'm a this, I'm a that. Here's my thing. I appreciate the fact that you have been successful in your business. Like you at one point raised $100 million in your business. But let's be real. Right now, you are in the season where you're filing for bankruptcy. Okay, you got lawsuits about unpaid rent. You got all this drama going on regarding your business. Call me crazy, but this is not really the time to be braggadocious. You know what I mean? Like, you can be proud of what you've done or whatever, but at the same time, there's a season to be humble. And I feel like this is that season. You know what I'm saying? I feel like some of her aggression also comes from the fact that she thinks that she's better than everybody that's on the cast. And yes, you've raised that much money, but half the cast ain't in your circumstances. So yeah, I think we gotta make sure our stuff is clean before we walking around acting like we the shit. Well, while that was going on, the other group was turned up. They was having a good time. They was on their way to see the horses at the stable. But when they got there, it seemed like the horse had an issue. He felt some bad energy from someone. It was about to attack them, and they had to hurry up and like run for cover. And then the trainer did her demonstration, and she looked at them to get on the horse, and everybody's just like, who she think about to get on this horse? This horse just tried to attack us. Like, no, man, we're not doing that. They pretended to have lunch in the middle of the horses stable, you know, smelling all the horse manure, which was not ideal. But like I said, they were having a good time. They was having a key, and that was the group that you kind of want to be with. Okay. So after everybody kind of gets back from their trip, Pinky and Kelly have a moment, and they're talking. Have you noticed that the people who's always talking about they want to protect their energy, protect their peace, and 9 times out of 10 they be the main hell raisers? Kelly came to Pinky's room, and Pinky was all like, yeah, you know, like I try to be mindful of my energy and the people I be around. Just like, girl, you serious? You bring a lot of energy to these situations as well. But what I didn't like about this scene, and Kelly kept talking about, yeah, you know, the other women just don't get it. You know, like we self-made. They ain't really got nothing else going on. And I'm just like, what? Kelly, what you talking about? The way I see it, you and Pinky and probably, and Angela a little bit, in the worst financial situations right now, okay? And I don't even understand how you can sit there and say that they don't have anything else going on. Baby, Phaedra stays booking busy. We know that she has multiple businesses. And then, of course, Porsha has multiple businesses, multiple income streams, okay? Cynthia has a podcast. Cynthia has other ventures going on herself, okay? So I don't understand how you can sit there and talk about the other ladies don't really have anything going on. And even with Drew, like Drew is acting. It's not like she just home twiddling her thumbs. Yes, we find out how much she really makes or whatever, but the girl's still out there. She's not like she's not doing anything. I think the thing that was bothering me, I don't mind them saying that they're self-made. Okay, I don't mind that part. But they were both talking like they were on the top of the world at that moment. And don't get me wrong, I'm not at all faulting them for where they are in their lives because things happen in business, especially when you're in the restaurant industry. Like the restaurant industry is hands down one of the hardest industries to make it. But my thing is, why are we putting ourselves on such a high pedestal and acting like everybody else is just a bunch of bums? Like, I thought that was unnecessary. And I just feel like the two of them think way too highly of themselves. Like, you could be proud of yourself without feeling the need to bring everybody else down. But that's just me. So, of course, the main attraction is the big draw in the van between Kelly versus Porsha. And let's face it, this argument has been brewing for quite some time because Kelly has been going around talking trash about the last meeting that she had with Porsha, and instead of just saying it to Porsha's face. But finally, they got an opportunity to hash it out in the van. It starts off with them hashing out the day, and then Cynthia says, why don't you tell us about something that you learned about someone during this trip? And of course, K. Michelle, be a message, she goes, well, I learned that Phaedra was actually a really nice person. And I'm like, girl, that was kind of funny. So they all laughed about that, and it was fine. And K. Michelle was like really surprised that Phaedra was a big deal in the housewives world because they went out at the airport and like somebody recognized Phaedra, and she was like, Phaedra, they know her like that. Yes, baby, Phaedra was a big deal in reality TV. But anyway, so here's the messy part. Kelly starts thanking everybody for showing up to her event. And of course, in that moment, Angela's like, oh, so who all showed up? Now, she know good and well who was there and who wasn't there, okay? But of course, Angela's sitting there trying to stir up the mess. And Pinky caught it because in her confession, she was like, look at that. Angela over there being messy. She wasn't even lying. So Kelly was like, girl, you know who wasn't there. Like, you know this. So Porsha just jumped on in and asked her how she liked her event. But then Kelly was trying to tell her, look, in this group, we want actual support. The actual support that we want are people showing up to the event. We don't want flowers. So my thing with Porsha is she knows the real reason she didn't show up because she didn't like the fact that Kelly had caught her horseshoe behind her back. And she found out about it because I believe Angela was the one who told her about it. So shocking, right? Shocking. So why not just tell her that too? It's like, girl, I didn't show up because I heard you call me horseshoe. That's what I would have told her. But anyway, I felt like Porsha should have just been upfront about that. But then, of course, Porsha was like, you know, you see how I made that comment about you in front of Kay, you didn't like it. So my thing is, if you felt some type of way about me sleeping with married men, you should have said something to me instead of like all in these interviews. And then Kelly was like, oh, so that's what we doing? So you basically want to reflect about how you felt about yourself? And she was like, no, that wasn't it. Kelly, she said, so I'm lying? I'm lying about you sleeping with a married man? Didn't you make the comment about wanting to sleep with Charles? And she was like, also, didn't you sleep with R. Kelly? And I have to say, I'm a little surprised she brought up R. Kelly. Because I really think that Simon was the person that she really wanted to bring up. So I don't know why she just didn't go for it. But she brought up R. Kelly nonetheless. And Porsha was like, no, he was not married when I was with him. Porsha was like, oh, so that means you read my book then. Okay. So, but Porsha's forgetting something. Porsha is the one who actually aired that tea out. Yes, this was in her book, but during that time when she was promoting her book, she also discussed being with R. Kelly. She talked about it openly while she was promoting her book. So that actually wasn't new tea because you actually talked about it yourself. So technically, Kelly could have just heard your interview. She didn't necessarily have to have bought your book to learn about that tea. And then, of course, Porsha's trying to tell her what she did with this man. Like, you slept this man BET weekend, and I just happened to know that your drawers came off time you got to your room. And she's like, well, they did because I got dressed to go out to dinner with Shamia. But it's like, okay, how did she know about that little tidbit that your underwear went off? Kelly's not, because Kelly kept saying, who? Put it out there. And Porsha was about to put it out there. She was like, okay, well, I'm not going to put it all the way out there. But then Phaedra was like, wait, hold on, don't do this. And then Angela was like, oh, so you know who this person is. And she was just like, yeah, I do. I don't think we need to do that. And then her confession, she was saying, when you put it out there like that, you're not hurting the man, you're hurting the wife. And she knows the family, allegedly, that this all pertains to. So, of course, after that, Porsha stays quiet or whatever. And then they start having to train their own insults. Kelly's like, see, the only thing you need to be worried about is the liens on your house. And she was like, oh, I know he's going to bring that up. And then she started bringing out how Kelly lost her house and the business, lost the business that she trying to start and already lost it and this and that and the third. And then, of course, Kelly tells her, well, and then I think Porsha said something about, like, her not having a prenup or her miss prenup. And she was like, well, I'm married for love. I didn't marry for funds like you do. And I don't know, y'all. I seen Kelly's ex-husband, and I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe she did marry for funds as well. But just because, he's been making some comments himself lately about their marriage. I'll put it this way. I'm surprised that was her ex-husband. I really was surprised by that. But here's the $1 million question. What do we believe about Kelly sleeping with this alleged married man? Because here's the problem, right? It's possible that this tea could be correct, right? It could be right. Because, again, how would Porsha have known about her underwear coming off? Unless Kelly was just being smart and like, yeah, of course they did because I went and got dressed. Unless she was being smart in that regard. But the problem here is that even though you have Phaedra co-signing the statement about Kelly because allegedly she knows the person involved, the problem is both of them have a history of lying. Let's not forget about the whole Candy situation. Both of them ran that lie all season long. Now, allegedly, according to Porsha, she didn't know it was a lie because she was just simply repeating what Phaedra said to her. And then, of course, later on, instead of Phaedra owning it, she trying to say, well, someone told her, and she repeated it. None of that makes sense, because here's my thing. They talked to Candy enough times to confront her about that, right? Instead of making up these lies. And then, not only did they lie, they lied as if they knew for a fact that Candy said all this stuff, right? So we can't forget that. So Phaedra co-signing doesn't really matter because she does have a history of lying. And see, that's the problem when you're a liar. When you finally tell the truth about something, people don't always believe you because you lie so much. So we don't really know what to believe at this point where they're concerned because of Porsha and Phaedra's history with lies. So the part of me feels like Porsha is just trying to get some get back because she didn't like what Kelly was saying. So she figured she'd try to find something to drag out there about her. But what do y'all think? Do y'all think they lying? Do y'all think they lying on Kelly like this? I would love for y'all to tell me in the comments what y'all think about this lie. But as you know, it's going to continue on for the next episode. I feel like this Dallas trip is going to be a lot. Like, it's already a lot, and we on day 2, and day 2 is not even finished. Because they haven't even gone to the dinner yet. So I can only imagine what the rest of this trip is going to be like. I'm like, child. They have barely had a moment of peace on this trip. So it's going to be real interesting to see how the rest of the season goes with all these women, child. It's quite different. But I'm here for it. Because, right, I will say, I have been entertained throughout this trip. So what do y'all think? How have y'all been feeling about this Atlanta cast this particular season? Have y'all liked the new additions that they have with Pinky and K. Michelle? What do y'all think? Love to know your thoughts in the comments. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe it. Thank you. See you next time.